Good evening, Dr. Jim Puckett and the rest of the aesthetics class. My name is William, and I'll be giving my presentation on the effects that the Ed Sullivan Show, MTV, and YouTube have had on American pop culture as well as the music industry throughout the years. Now, the Ed Sullivan Show was a television show that aired on CBS from 1948 to 1971. It was a variety show that families could sit down and watch together. It would have everything from comedy acts such as George Carlin to talking about politics like the Cold War. They had Will Chamberlain, who of course was a famous NBA basketball star. But they also had musical groups on there, wide variety. They had the Angels, who were a pop group. They had Connie Francis. They had, Hank Williams Jr. And of course, groups like the Doors and the Supremes and, the Beatles. What made the Ed Sullivan Show special was they could air across the entire country. It was broadcast. As long as you had a television and an antenna, you could get the Ed Sullivan Show. Now, with the introduction of the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, it brought in a new era of music called the British Invasion. Now, it brought groups like the Rolling Stones, the Yardbirds, the Who to the American shores and for the American listener. This music was new and different at the time. And as time went on, other groups began to follow, like Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, which have had a heavy influence on American rock music these days. So the night that the Beatles played, it was 73 million people. Now, in 2021, there were 73 million cable subscribers. So that is a significant number when you compare them. Obviously, it doesn't compare to such things as the Super Bowl, but still significant for this time period. Now, on August 1st, 1981, MTV debuted. It was a new channel that was dedicated to playing music videos only. This was the first of its kind, and people really weren't sure how it was going to work, but throughout the years, they made it work. Now, the first music that they ever played on the channel, was Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. Now, what's interesting is that the Buggles were actually a British band. I don't know if this was done on purpose, but definitely a coincidence. Now, the problem with MTV was that they were only in the major markets, like New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago. They didn't have a wide outreach. But one thing that they did notice, especially locally, was record sales began to increase pretty rapid. That's when they realized that they had something special. They started to introduce more bands, more types of music. With MTV, it brought in the second British wave, which was known as New Wave music. This was groups like Duran Duran, the Culture Club, the Cars, the Clash, Flock of Seagulls. A lot of the music that you heard in the 80s that you may not even realize were actually British groups, but definitely had a heavy influence on American pop culture. Both shows introduced the American culture to several different types of music. Ed Sullivan Show, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, but he also had Frank and Nancy Sinatra, Connie Francis, the Angels, Hank Williams Jr. He introduced the Beatles to a large population that helped initiate the British invasion. MTV did the same thing, only on a different platform by using music videos. Now, when MTV was young in the early 80s, they introduced the American population to groups like Billy Idol as well. It was an interesting time. And MTV began to grow. As they grew, more and more people began to get cable. They began to watch MTV more. People like Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, George Michael, they became very popular. And these, especially Madonna, she was kind of the symbol of the 80s for music, as well as Michael Jackson, although he had had a successful career with Motown in the 70s. But it was all about the pop culture. Madonna's Like a Virgin concert video at the 1984 Music Awards. It's just, even to this day, people still watch it and are amazed by it. Michael Jackson breaking out the moonwalk at the 1983 Motown Awards. World went crazy over that. I remember learning the moonwalk in gym class. So MTV had a very huge influence, especially on the younger population, because it was targeted towards teenagers and young adults, which nowadays, we're the adults now. We're the 40 somethings, and YouTube has taken over. Now, today, YouTube is the largest video platform in the world. Over 1 billion monthly viewers. MTV can't compete with that. They never could, because they're worldwide. And as long as you have an internet connection, you can get any video you want, anytime, anywhere. You can watch a music video from 1955. You can watch live concert footage. You can watch the newest music videos. Hear the latest music. You just need the internet connection, and that's what makes YouTube so popular. It is also the simplicity of introducing new music. The most obscure artist can download a song that they created in their mother's basement to the biggest stars of today, like Beyonce, Eminem. They all put their music on YouTube, and billions of people have access to it, which is something amazing, and it will continue to grow. It will be interesting to see how YouTube takes over the music industry like MTV did in the 80s and like the Ed Sullivan Show did in the 50s and 60s. It's going to be interesting to see how the world changes with American pop culture, with who becomes the next Justin Bieber or Shawn Mendes. All we can do is wait and continue to surf the internet and watch music videos and see what the future holds for everyone.